Howdy, y'all. What's going on? I had to follow up on a few things. So, left off the last video about nihilism and talking about the decline of moral men, and I'm going to continue that series. I think it's important. I think it's going to be a pretty interesting topic and conversation to have on a regular basis. I'm kind of running out of time, so I wanted to shoot a quick video about that a little bit more. I think the reason that we fall into nihilism, this is one of the other reasons that I wanted to kind of bring this up and to hammer a little bit more home on that. It usually comes with an existential crisis, when an individual questions his purpose and his meaning. And I say his because I'm speaking specifically to men on this, young men particularly. Having gone through these things myself, not having a father really there present to teach me and to guide me through life, and the trials and tribulations of being a young man and developing into a grown man, I came into this sort of existential crisis. I had issues with confidence. I had issues with direction. I just did things. My friends and I, we would have something called movie night. We had a movie weekend. We did the craziest stuff imaginable to try to make it seem like a movie. And it was fun. It was stupid. It was wild, but it could have got us in a lot of trouble, or seriously injured and hurt or dead, even worse. I know many of us have done that when we were young. When I was young and stupid. Don't copyright that. Anyway. I think there were certain points in my life where I was extremely disappointed with an outcome or a situation, and it led me to a negative view of myself. I'm worthless. I'm useless. It was my ego. When you're a young man, you're chocked full of ego and testosterone, so when things are good, they're freaking great. But when you have too much ego or too much pride, and things are going so well for so long, you end up falling into this trap where something that disappoints you, or something that doesn't go the way you anticipated, and you view it as a negative outcome, happens to dissuade you from carrying on. Now, these can lead to varying thoughts and emotions. Disappointment, obviously, being disappointed, being distraught, being angry, becoming fearful, losing confidence in your ability, and sometimes to the extreme. In my case, was a lack of purpose in anything. For example, it's just a stupid example, but this is something that young boys go through. Had a little girlfriend, or I'll call it that, like say 12, 13, 14 years old. You're making out with her one day and things are good, and then one day, she's like, I don't want to be with you anymore, and you're like, but I love you. And you're kind of stuck in this this vacuum of disappointment and hurt pride, hurt ego. Your joy is gone, and you kind of had your first heartbreak, and it just kind of rips your heart out, and you're like, what am I going to do with myself? The problem is when you're young, right? And you stay young mentally here and in your heart. And what I mean by in your heart is just that you never mature. You never really grow out of that shell. You don't seek to expand, and you kind of stay content for too long. You stop growing, and when this happens, your horizon. All right. When I say horizon, I say when you're out in the open ocean, the Earth is spherical, sort of a sphere shape. I'm not going to get into the particulars, but anyway. You have a horizon, and it's sort of, kind of like this. And you see so far, it's not flat. Well, eventually you run into where you can't see over that horizon. And when you can't see over that horizon, you don't know what lies beyond it. And when you're young and you're inexperienced and unwise and underdeveloped or undeveloped, your horizon is shortened. It's no longer that 30 miles or kilometers, whatever the actual mathematical equation is there. Your horizon is shortened. You can't see past your own nose. Meaning, I can't see past tomorrow. I can't see past today. I can't see past this moment. And you shouldn't be focused on that particular moment for too long. Was it that Bruce Lee in Enter the Dragon? He was teaching a young boy. He says, you look up and you look at all the stars. You look at the moon and the stars. And the boy looked at the finger and he smacked him on the head and he says, don't focus on the finger or you'll miss all the heavenly glory. It's interesting because we do that with so many situations in life. And again, I think it's worth considering what leads to nihilism, what leads to that belief system, that structure, that constant disappointment. When you're bombarded with expectation and constantly disappointed, and all you know is that whether you set your goals too high or even if they're reachable and attainable and you just couldn't make it happen, you determine that your value or your self-worth is non-existent. It kind of leads you to that, especially if you don't have friends, especially if you don't have a family unit that you can lean into, that you can trust, that you can put your confidence into, that would support you. So we lash out or we give up and we stop accepting anything moral and start rejecting any form of authority because anything and anyone with authority has already failed you, which is one of the reasons that I like to discuss this with fatherless young men. And I think this pertains to anybody who, even if you do have a father, or maybe he was a disappointment, or maybe he just doesn't understand you, and maybe he does understand you and you just don't see it that way. It's interesting, but think about that. If all you know or all you can feel is disappointment or anger or fear, and everything and everyone you've ever looked up to has failed you or disappointed you in your own mind, not even necessarily in actuality, you become despondent, you become hopeless. And you fall into that nihilistic belief where there's no moral authority but myself. You can't trust others to give a valuable opinion because my lived experience is reality. Now, maybe there's something to that, but I don't think that this is necessarily the case. That's subjective, not objective. How do we get to objective? Well, that's a long road. That's another conversation. What I mean by objective is reality. The closer we get to the truth and reality of things, the problem is that we have a lot of suppositions of the objectivity and truth, versus the subjective, which is opinionation or opinions and suppositions and experiences that have very different outcomes. So it's not an objective reality. It's just yours, which is not necessarily objective, just something that you experienced. Give up your expectations so much. Try that as an exercise. Don't let don't be fooled into believing that your experience is an absolute. It's just a moment. And that moment will pass. And it's worth reflecting on it and writing it down and understanding it better. You can come back and reflect on it later. Thoughts are fleeting things, and if you write it down, you're able to actually communicate it better to yourself and actually examine the headspace that you were in at that moment. Just food for thought. Keep combating nihilism. Have a belief system. Have something to believe into. Have something purpose. And understand that you are not the ultimate authority in all things. I think it's God, and you can believe it whatever you want it to be, but ultimately, it's important to understand structure, and that people are better, and that somebody else has something to offer that's valuable to you. Anyway, just some thoughts. Have a good day. Bye.